But a black belt is someone who's great at life and great at being a person. And that's what makes it so difficult. We saw, if you guys were here on Saturday, we promoted 5 kids to black belt, 5 young adults to black belt. And they all had one thing in common. They had a lot in common, but the one thing that was glaring, that stood out, was what? What stood out to you? What was glaring about the 5 people that was all the same? Matt's fault. That was glaring.
10 years.
The glaring thing was the 10 years. They were all part of the 10-year club. Or very, very close to the 10-year club. Because one of our black belts is not something that's attainable in a short period of time. So when you start to hear about some of the other things that these people have in their life, I've known them for the last 10 years, and I'm still blown away. I'm like, man, I don't understand. How did this person accomplish all of this? Because it seems like every time I'm here, they're here. Except for Joseph, but that's different. And I feel like they're just constantly training, and it's very rare that they're not here for their classes. So how is it possible that they can put all this together and achieve all this at the same time they're becoming a black belt? It's truly incredible. Truly incredible. So we're going to start off with young Karl Schaffstell. And Karl, if you could just see how I spelled your last name on here, probably make you start with that.
That's too far.
It's not the font, it's the amount of F's and T's and stuff like that in there. I'm pretty sure I spelled it wrong. Karl is 15 years old, and he started 10 years ago at the age of 5 in 2008. His parents brought him in for discipline and self-confidence. I would say that he has superseded that expectation on every single level you could possibly supersede. He's also gotten taller than we thought he was going to get as well. Karl and Joseph both had a very interesting transition to where they are today, and I wanted to speak on that for a moment, because to me, transitions in the martial arts are what make the martial arts difficult. Transition and change in people's lives are what make people quit. Someone comes in and they start off and they're 5 years old and they're just in the beginner class and they just hit the heavy bag and they play with the pads and they're just doing punching and kicking, and it's a hard transition to go from everything you've experienced in your world to us. It's a hard transition. We expect a lot out of a 5-year-old kid, man. A lot. And then you get used to it, and you're in that class for 6 months or so, and then we start to transition you. We start to add things like jiu-jitsu, which can be really scary to a young mind. Then we start to add things down the road like kickboxing, which is one of the scariest things that you could ever ask a child to do. So we have all these transitions that our students go through, and quite frankly, most of you students don't make it. For instance, you go from the beginner level to the intermediate level, you typically lose half of the people. If you sign 100 people up in your beginner program, you get 50 people in your intermediate program. Why? Because it's a transition. People don't like change. It's difficult. That's what makes people quit. Karl and Joseph went through what I believe is the most difficult transition that we offer in the school. And that's going from the kids program to the adult program. That is by far the hardest transition to make. It is by far the most delicate transition that I make as an instructor. And I handle it with kid gloves. So the fact that they were able to go through all of those other transitions, but then go from the kids program to the adult program, and when they get up to the adult program, and then I tell you, yeah, so you were this close, now you're this close. Which is basically what I told both of them. They were this close to become a black belts, but that wasn't the right class for them. So I pulled them out and put them in the adult class. And as soon as I did that, they were no longer this close, they were now this close. Most human beings on this planet would have done two things. First thing they would have done was blamed me. I wronged them. And then they would have quit. That's what the human race does. Blame someone else for it, and then quit. Not them. Never once did you hear a word from them other than, who sensei? What is it you need me to do? Who sensei? I'm doing it. Oh, you want me to start boxing to the head now instead of the bottom? Who sensei? No problem. Like that's just a little transition. You just turn it on overnight. Whatever it is I asked them to do, they said loose, and they did it. Not only did it well, but did it unbelievably. Really, really nice. Phenomenal level of martial arts. So Karl started when he was 5. 10 years later, he's been training. He's 15 years old. And just to give you guys a little bit, we hear the stories of what it takes to become a black belt. You train for 10 years. You have to go through all those transitions. You have to put in hours and hours and hours. If you count the hours over 10 years, it's thousands of hours that you put in. But now in 9th grade, he's currently does, I can't read my own, cross country, and then he does winter and spring track. So he's got 3 seasons of running. You were on the varsity cross country team, correct? 9th grade?
Winter track and spring track.
Winter track and spring track, you're on the varsity and you're in 9th grade, right? He scored in the top 20 times in Pennsylvania for 3 different events. So he's not only running 3 seasons aside from what he's doing here, but he's excelling past everybody else in the state of Pennsylvania when he's doing it. That alone would be enough dedication to take someone's complete focus and time for the entire year. Because I'm assuming there's no losses. I'm assuming you have to train constantly for that. All the while, straight A's in school at the same time. So I'm telling you, you take all remedial classes though, right? I guess it's good that he doesn't know what those classes are. So, all of those things that he's done simultaneously while achieving his black belt. And then also suffered a pretty substantial injury in between the last time he tested, where he passed a certain part of his test, and this day now overcame a pretty substantial injury, lost time training for the tournament, but went into the COC anyway, and I mean, it was fighting tonight. There's no 2 ways about it. The whole place erupted. It was like the last fight going on, and just an unbelievable first place win. So it was a huge moment for him, and it was the moment that I saw that he was ready to become a black belt. And it was because, quite frankly, he can handle it. Everything that he's got on his plate, he's able to juggle it, he's able to handle it. So that means to me that he can handle the responsibility of wearing this. So without further ado, Senpai Karl Schaffer.
Everyone. So, before I talk about who I've become, let's talk about where I began. And I started in Cubs class. To put that into perspective, that was back when Tony Billings was a Joshu and was doing flips off the upper storage area. And we were all afraid of the dragon in the attic in school in Montgomeryville. After a while in Cubs class, Sensei moved me up to the kids' classes. I remember it as clear as day. I wasn't used to having to smile to show my mouth guard. So when Sensei was going down the line and came to me, he said to smile, and I did one of those closed mouth smiles. Sensei, frustrated that I stopped his fluent movement down the line, said in a loud voice to go like this. After that, I didn't ever want to come back. Never. I thought my life was in danger over just a stern voice from a sensei with a little bit more hair. Fast forward a few years, and I've begun to realize the stunning results my training has given me. I used to be so shy, I wouldn't be able to look someone in the eye when I talked to them. But then I was able to walk down the elementary school with halls with my shoulders back, head up, and able to have a conversation with anyone, whether I knew them or not. Moving into the new school in Chalfont, the schedule changed, so I met a whole new group of training partners, along with some of my best friends to this day. One of my struggles has not been being able to compete in COC as much as I would have wanted. I first competed in 2013 and got my first trophy. This fueled my hunger, but not being able to continue competing after the third time, I felt frustrated and went through my longest plateau. But, as Sensei always said, those plateaus always end in one way or another. Not long after this, I went through a time of fear in MMA, particularly with one of my fellow students. I remember walking up on Mondays every week, not thinking about school, but the beating I was sure to get. Sensei, of course, picked up on this and made sure I never got a break from it. Yeah. I remember specifically, I was hiding.
That's because I knew you were going to make a hair comment during the speech.
I remember specifically, I was hiding in the bathroom during COC training one day, sitting in a stall, and here comes Sensei. He talks to me while I'm there, on the throne, helpless about my situation. It's a true story, by the way. He told me about how I should not be afraid of the student, but look up to him. So, over the next week, I put that thought to mind, started rolling with him, which is very different from my former all-defense to just survive the round tactics. That adversity taught me to stay relaxed no matter how bad the situation. He changed how I approached MMA, and that was really my turning point. He lit a fire in me. After that, I decided to take my training more seriously than I ever had before. I was determined to make every class my best, whether my surroundings allowed me to or not. I remember having a terrible day at school one day, and actually looking forward to my MMA classes because I was able to release my stress and relax my body, something most wouldn't expect in a place where you go to fight. I've learned to enjoy my art form, and I've befriended people who have led me to the person I am today. I wouldn't be giving a speech right now if it weren't for my whole team pushing me harder than I ever thought I could. Thank you all of TSMA for the life you have trained into me and the roots you have grown to cement goodwill and heart in my soul. I can never repay you for the hard work you have installed in me that I will go on to use in my everyday life. Thank you all.
It really wasn't, so now they're kind of thinking I'm posted on Facebook like the second half of the speech. Where to begin with this next young man? Joseph.